To order. Please silence all cell phones and electronic devices when speaking. Please come to the podium, state your name, address, and speak loudly and clearly. Thank you. Item number 1 on our agenda today is approval of the agenda.
Move approval.
I have an objection to number 9. I don't have an issue with limiting that comment period to items that weren't already discussed on the agenda, but that would be more proper to be done in rules of the meeting, which we have voted on before when we did like the 3 minutes, that kind of stuff. So I think if that's something we want to do, which like the Board of Supervisors, that's a rule that we have, that public concerns is for an item that wasn't already discussed, I'd be fine taking that up. It just isn't proper to have it within this number 9 on this part of the agenda. So I would just move to strike anything after public concerns.
I know we printed them last time, they are in the actual rules.
What was that?
I was just asking if anyone had the rules handy. I thought that in the rules that you all established, there was a line item that said public concerns only were concerns on items other than agenda items. I could be wrong.
And if we did that, so like I said, I have no problem with it. I just didn't want to create a new rule off the cuff.
Yeah, so it looks like Rule 8 of our Rules of Conduct says any speaker desiring to address an item that is not a scheduled agenda item or scheduled item on the agenda and/or during the time for public concerns will be heard at the end of the regular meeting as time allows.
Okay, very good. Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 3-0. Item number 2, approval of the minutes on the August 26, 2025 meeting.
Move approval.
I'll second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Passes 3-0. Item number 3, approval of claims, and I would call on Shane Albrecht to give us an overview of that, please.
So currently, there are 4 claims. They're all Baker Group bills. They are for the month of August. First one is $12,658.20. The second bill is $680. The next bill is $9,608.20, and the last bill is $297.50. The reason those bills are split up that way, just for everybody's knowledge, is the difference between working on the project and working on stuff for litigation. The smaller number is the litigation number each time. Total of the bills is $23,243.90.
Any questions?
I would just ask in the future, I didn't know that we were getting breakdowns of these invoices. I think that those should be sent out to all the authority members, whether the Baker Group invoices or Frederickson Bryan or any of those, that all 3 of us should be able to see the breakdown of those itemized expenses. I would move approval.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 3-0. Item number 4, financial report, and I would call on Ryan Erickson for that, please.
Ryan Erickson, Finance Director with Woodbury County. For the 2-week period of August 23rd to September 5th, during that period, we did have some interest posted for the taxable bonds and the maintenance fund. And then there were some expenditures with the Baker Group, C.W. Suter, and Winkler that totaled $26,000 out of the taxable, bringing that balance to just under $3.2 million. And there was a small, breakout with the Baker Group to the miscellaneous, and that fund is just under $700,000. The next meeting, since we're going monthly, I will be providing a monthly report rather than a 2-week period report.
Any questions?
None.
Thank you, sir. Item number 5 on the agenda today is approval to appoint Mark Nelson as the LEC representative for mediation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for tabling this last week. I apologize I couldn't be here. Obviously, a very good reason to miss, or a happy reason, but apologize that I could not be here nonetheless. So this was discussed at length 2 weeks ago. I went back and watched the meeting. I appreciate a lot of the comments that were made. And so I do think that was still never, a lot of the questions that were directed here that were never answered was where does the county taxpayer get representation from this body for the county money that's being spent here? Every penny that the authority has spent to present date is county money, 100%. Whether that's been on the jail, expert fees, legal fees, it's 100% county taxpayer money. And they have nobody up here that they have elected other than myself. Nobody up here has gone door to door and talked to constituents and ran in 2 elections to get here, but me. And I've made a promise to them in my campaign that I would watch over the money. And I'm the only one up here that's done that. And I guess reading the room is that there's this attitude that Ron should do it. Let's talk about the representation here. Ron was appointed in 2019 by a 4/5 vote on the Board of Supervisors and City Council. 4 of those supervisors are not in office. And in fact, 3 of those 5, the last election that they were in was 4 years prior to that. So we are nearing a decade since the voters of Woodbury County have had a chance to weigh in on who is this 3rd spot on the authority. And if you think that that is representation, I can tell you it is not. 10 years without a say-so is far from what I would call democratic or true representation. And so I hear it all the time from constituents who they want to represent their interests and their interests of the money. I don't know how many of you have gotten calls this week about the everybody needing to pay their property taxes. I sure have. Can't go anywhere. People ask, where's the money go? And they call one of us 5. I'm responsible for the money. That's why I've been elected, and that's why I need to be in this role. Simply put, we heard it from all the people last week. It's the right thing to do.
Well, Mark, the difficulty I have with that is, yes, Ron actually was named chairperson by the authority members. And we haven't had election, I think the last election was what, 2021? Where Ron was voted in as the chairperson. And he's worked this project a lot harder than many people. And he's aware of the facts, he's aware of the background. He just has a sharp awareness. And in our discussions, I was able to get approval from the authority's legal counsel that yes, Mr. Bittinger, who will be representing the County Board of Supervisors and will be speaking for the taxpayers of Woodbury County, he can make calls to you during the mediation proceedings. And that's really good that he can do that.
The
Both-
supervisor with the most knowledge of this project is myself, not Dan Binger. And so to hamstring the entire population of Woodbury County, every taxpayer, to not have their number one choice is silly.
Well, I still think Mr. Bittinger can handle the mediation because of the process, mediation proceedings.
And I agree that he can, but
Go.
he's not the most knowledgeable.
But he can make, there's going to be plenty of times. Is that correct, Jody? Am I correct on a mediation? There's going to be plenty of time for Dan to give you a call and give you an update and tell you exactly what's going on and why it's going on.
Yeah, it's a 2-day, right now, it's tentatively scheduled for a 2-day mediation, so it'll be all day for 2 days. See if we can get it settled. Till we get it settled. And yes, there'll be time for folks that aren't there to get phone calls, to get updates. And I would add, if Dan wanted to bring a second board of supervisor, he could, because that wouldn't be a quorum. So Matthew Wong obviously was chair before Dan. So Dan could bring Matthew or one of the other 2 supervisors. But yes, there'll be plenty of time for John or Dan to call Mark, or for me to call you, Dan, to give updates during the mediation.
Yeah, I just don't think the taxpayers are going to see that as acceptable. And I think the other thing, when you talk about the history of the project, I was appointed on the authority on September 5th of 2023, and a week later was when we announced the fire damper issues. So when you look through the joint demand letter Does anybody know off the top of their head how many dollars of the nearly 6.7 million that we're gonna try to recoup happened before September 5th when I was appointed? 143,000. And we talk about, oh, we need the facts, we need the facts. We have spent $142,000 plus on expert fees. But now this entire thing hinges on if one person is there who's not an expert. Make that make sense. Every problem we have listed out in the demand letter, we have had an expert come out and give us their expert testimony. We have 2 paid employees that are going to be there who are experts also in their own field that have extensive knowledge, far beyond any of the 3 of us out there that are going to be there as well. So how many experts do we need? We need 50 experts? 100 experts? Do we need to spend $1 million on experts? I don't buy the expert thing. We're here to recoup money that was wrongfully taken from the taxpayers of Woodbury County by a shoddy design, shoddy workmanship. And people are pissed that this happened. And they're pissed at how these meetings for a lot of years were run and how they were treated. And they are looking for someone to do right by them. And if we can't see that, then I'm sorry. We are all in the wrong line of work. Because this is so clear, guys. And so I ask, why did we spend all the money on expert fees if all we needed was him being there? If all we needed was Ron to be there, that's all we needed. Why did we spend that much money on expert fees?
Well, it's greater than that, Mark. It really is. You have to have experts. We're on the eve of mediation. And we've got quite an opponent on the other side. And if we're not ready, and when I say we, if our attorneys are not ready and our experts are not ready, it's going to hurt our case. And yeah, then they can blame who they want to blame. But we have a very tough job ahead of us, and we're on the eve of this mediation. And we're having this discussion now. A lot of this unfolded. You can pick dates and say this amount came up then and this amount came up then, and I agree with you. We have to spend the money wisely, Mark, but we have got to be ready at the end of November. Or we might, I don't even want to talk about what the alternate options would be, but.
Yeah, and you're right, and people need to have somebody doing this that they trust.
Well, it's unfortunate that some have the trust and some don't. You know, the question that was, and I usually have to process these things, Mark, but the question that came up 2 weeks ago was, what's the downside of having Mark at the mediation? Mark, it's not about you. You're very talented. You're very smart. You're very wise. It's not, and I'm not going to go into that arena where we're going to start to be negative about each other. You're a very positive person, but so is Ron Wick. And you'll have access by the phone. It's probably as good, if not better, in some respects, that that 2 supervisors could have you on the line giving you updates blow by blow.
I was not elected to be a spectator, Dan, and nobody in the county wants me to be a spectator. And when I want to quote something, because you brought up a good point, Dan. You said last week, quote, "The thing you have to be careful of is that you don't blow up the mediation proceedings and everybody says, we're done, see you, bye, we'll meet you in court." If you were to ask anybody in Woodbury County, if there is someone on this board potential blowing this thing up, it would be Ron Wick. I'm sorry, and he's blown up on me, he's kept agenda items off. I've seen him ask the sheriff to escort the public out of here for answering questions. On what basis would we think otherwise?
Okay, I'm going to refocus for just a second and try not to make this about any one person. I think everyone has heard me give the LEC Authority their props for carrying the baton across the line and getting this building completed for us. Ron certainly weathered a lot of garbage in that process. But as I sit here today, if I look at this as a taxpayer only, okay? Without making it at all personal, you just said, Mr. Moore, that if the attorneys and the expert witnesses aren't ready, then they'll have to answer to it, or whatever you said. The only one that's gonna answer to it is that guy. That's it. You're not running for reelection. You chose not to. For whatever reasons, you have the right to do that. And unfortunately, and I think Ron would answer to it if he was an elected official. I have no doubt that Ron would do the right thing and answer to it. But when you just said that, it triggered to me, well, there's only one of the three of you that's going to be accountable to the taxpayers come November. That's it. There's nobody else that's going to be accountable. So if I'm only looking at this from a taxpayer perspective, and it has nothing to do with Ron or you, I want the one guy who's going to answer to me when this is over. It's going to be him. He has to, because he's elected. He's going to be the only person still elected in November. And so what I would say is just take all the personalities out of it, because you've heard me say it, and I'll say it until I'm blue in the face. This was never the LEC Authority's fault. And Ron did outstanding work to get us to where we're at. But if you're looking at this from a taxpayer's perspective, I think you'll have a hard time convincing any reasonable taxpayer that the one guy who's the elected person left shouldn't be the one representing the LEC Authority, regardless of personality. It has nothing to do with the personality. You know, and then on the flip side, when you told Mark that he would be a phone call away, well, if you flip it, so will Ron. Ron has the same access as a LEC Authority member. He's a phone call away. So if it's good enough for one, it's good enough for the other. To me, it really boils down to not the personality. Do I think Ron would do a fine job? I do. Do I think Ron's knowledgeable of the project? I do. But unfortunately, only one of you come November will still be accountable to the taxpayers. And the taxpayers are gonna hold, and it's a risk for him. It's a big risk for him, because you can bet your ass you're gonna be held accountable, Mark.
It's a no-win for me.
You know, I mean, you know, because people are pretty frustrated. So that's my 2 cents. It's not personal. It's nothing against anybody else. But if I'm the taxpayer, I want the one guy that I know has to answer to me later. That's all I'm saying. So I would just ask you to consider that as you consider it. I didn't watch any of the other meetings. I don't have a dog in the fight. This is a deal for the LEC Authority and for the board. I get it. So I don't even have the backstory. I didn't watch it. I haven't gotten involved in any of it. That's just my 2 cents.
Chairman,
Well,
can I clarify something or reiterate something from last meeting? So any settlement this is a public entity. We have multiple public entities here with the city, with the county, with the authority. So any settlement's gonna be voted on in open session at a public meeting. And going into the mediation, there will be discussions among the group. So no person that's coming to the mediation, whether it be Dan Bittinger, Mark, or Ron, is deciding anything at the mediation. And so from my standpoint, the county and the authority as a whole, they're all part of the decision-making process. And if the public isn't happy, it would be on both those entities' responsibility, because we're deciding that together. And in the mediation, no one person is gonna have the authority to do anything. So I just wanna make sure the public understands that there will be discussions beforehand. The parameters will be set as a group, and nothing will be decided at mediation, because we have to decide that in a public meeting. So all 3 authority members and all 5 board of supervisors will be discussing and approving settlement.
And I think there is a lack of really understanding of the mediation process. And Jody, I'm glad you pointed that out. I'm sorry if I'm getting defensive here, Sheriff, but I've been accountable to the taxpayers of Woodbury County. I've been accountable sitting through these meetings, trying to figure out what is our solution, what are we going to do, how do we respond to a work product that isn't acceptable to me. And that's being accountable. I think accountable and answerable are a couple of different concepts. And even though you're not going talking about personalities, I heard you say, I'm not accountable to the taxpayers. And I am accountable to the taxpayers, and I have been for over 12 years, and I will continue to be. And I
Okay.
think we have a really good situation here. Mark, you're not a spectator. If you're on the other end of that line, and we're trying to come up with a mediation, an agreement that we can all agree to, like Jody said, we're coming back to public hearings. The three of us as authority commissioners, Board of Commissioners, will have to decide, is that acceptable or not? That's being accountable to the taxpayers. To the Board of Supervisors, do they find that to be acceptable or not? That's accountable as well as answerable. And we've got a good thing going here. On the eve of mediation, why this is happening now and hasn't been discussed prior to this for many months, many months ahead, is beyond me. And I'm sorry I'm getting defensive. I don't want to be defensive. I want to find a solution that will work for everybody. So,
Yeah,
I'm
Dan, let
sorry.
me apologize. If you thought I meant that you weren't accountable, that's not what I meant. What I'm saying is that once you're no longer a city council member, I don't know if you'll still be sitting in that seat, for
that's
one
up to the
thing.
city council.
Say that again?
That's up to the city council if I will be.
Right.
Yes.
But even
That's
if-
their decision,
but then
just
if-
to be clear.
Right, but at that point, you will no longer be an elected official. And I think that you have to acknowledge that when you are an elected official, there's a different level of accountability, right?
I
There's
don't
a
think
different
so.
level of accountability.
I don't
Okay.
think so. From all the
Once
all
I'm
the
no
months-
longer
all-
sheriff, I'm not picking up the phone for anybody that calls me and asks me about anything about the sheriff's office unless I want to pick up the phone. But today, if they call, I got to pick up the phone, or I'm gonna be out of a job. So it wasn't a personal. I'm not making it personal. I'm just saying that if I always try to put myself in other people's shoes. Like I said, I don't have a dog in this fight, but if I'm just Joe taxpayer, the case that he made in the case about people being upset if it's not done right at the end of the day, if I'm just the general average taxpayer, if I'm my dad who's 75 years old, I'm saying, I want the one guy that I know has to pick up the phone when I call. I'm not saying you won't, but he has to. And I mean, really, politically, if you're smart, Mark, don't do it. Because you are taking all the risk. But I think as a taxpayer, again, do I think Ron would do a great job? Absolutely. Do I think you would do a great job? Yes, you're a trained attorney. I would hope you'd do better than both of them. So it's not personal in any way, shape, or form. I'm just trying to think of it from a taxpayer, because people are going to be asking me, whatever way you guys go, they're going to ask me, and I'm trying to just process it. So it was no personal attack in any way. Dan, I respect you. I respect Ron. It's nothing personal. I'm just trying to see it from a taxpayer's perspective.
But I want the public to know, I want the taxpayers to know that they are going to be heard loud and clear when the 5 supervisors get together to take a vote on whether that's acceptable or not. The 3 commissioners up here will be taking a vote to decide whether that's reasonable or not. That's being answerable and accountable to the taxpayers.
Right.
There's no two ways about
But
it.
even what,
Jody?
yeah, I was going to say use your last name, but I drew a blank.
McDougal.
Right?
That's
Is that
all
right? Even the argument you made, though, to me, as a taxpayer, says if it doesn't matter, then it doesn't matter, and why not have the one person who's still going to be the elected official then at the end of the day, right? If no decisions are made in that mediation and everything's got to go back again, then that's again. But I don't want to beat a dead horse. It was nothing personal. I thought I made it very clear that I've respected all of what you guys have done. If it wasn't for you guys, we wouldn't have a new building. If Ron wouldn't have had the courage to stand up and take all the BS that he took for several months, we wouldn't have this building. I've always been an active, vocal supporter of the LEC Authority. So I don't want it to be personal. I'm just looking at it from that lay person's taxpayer perspective. That's all. That's the only point I was trying to make. So
And
it
Ron,
wasn't
from the
personal.
very beginning, Ron Wick has always said, we're going to end up with a facility, we're going to do it right. There have been so many opportunities that some that weren't going to be caring about what taxpayers are thinking. They would say, let's let this one go. Let's let this one slide. Let's not do this. Let's just cut this corner. Let's cut that corner. That was not done, and it won't be done. And Ron Wick was making sure that we were all on that path to accomplish that. And that was a very difficult path. And it's been months, years that we've been working on this. And I don't want to beat the dead horse either. I'm sorry.
And I don't have a vote in this, but from my perspective, and you all have asked me about this, the logical choice is Ron. The county will be well represented. They will have at least 2 people there. This is a joint entity. This is something that we don't do a lot of, but it is a separate legal entity with, Dan is up here wearing his authority hat, but he also has a city council hat to wear. And Mark obviously has his 2 hats to wear, the authority hat. And
There's one hat because this is 100% funded by the county.
Okay,
It's 100% funded by the county.
this is.
The authority cannot run a jail. The authority cannot levy taxes. This is 100% a shell corporation to serve for the county to build this jail, and that is it.
Mark, I would disagree that, and you making that legal statement that it's a shell corporation, that is completely contrary to what we set up here. This is a joint entity established under Iowa code as a separate legal entity with city council representative, a board of supervisors representative, and then Ron was chosen by both of those entities. So Ron is the one person up here who just has the authority hat to wear. All 3 of you would be fine mediation representatives. The county has 2 representatives, so the logical choice is Ron, because he has his one authority hat that he can wear and truly
2
represent.
less knowledgeable representatives, the
And
county.
truly represent the
Because I'm not-
authority. He's also been here since 2019. The other thing I did want to just reiterate is, for those of you who haven't been in a mediation, the mediation is really led by the attorney. So it's not led.
Perfect, then there'd be no reason why I couldn't be there.
It's led by the attorneys, and so generally, it's the attorneys doing the talking. Now, this is after we've had meetings, closed session meetings where we've talked to you and John's talked to the county. And so typically what I'm looking for is the person that's got the longest fact history in case there is something factual that's come up. And there have been problems along the way. I think all 3 of you would make fine representatives, but people have asked me what's my opinion, and that's my opinion, that Ron is the appropriate choice for that, even though all 3 of you would be fine representatives, and the county will have its representation there, and then you all 3 will come back and discuss it in open session, answer questions from the public, and be held accountable to the public for the decisions that you vote on, in determining whether or not we want to get this settled.
And that might be the opinion of you and Dan and Ron, but there's 105,000 other residents that disagree.
And I'm one of them. William Burrows. I've spoke to this issue before, but I wanted to be here today to reiterate my support for Mark Nelson as the LEC representative for mediation. I've heard your arguments against that, and I disagree with them. First of all, as I said last week, I think there's a conflict of interest between Frederickson and Byron Law Firm and the Baker Group. Number 2, I have never heard Chairman Wick say anything independent other than, I turn this over to Shane Albright, please. So if Chairman Wick were in on the mediation and Shane Albright wasn't there, he wouldn't have anything to say. Would you disagree with that, Chairman?
You are the one speaking. I have no comment.
Thank you. That proves my point. As far as authoritarian Moore is concerned, you said that the attorneys must be ready. That would include the woman sitting next to you and her firm. Do you feel they are ready based on all the closed sessions that you have had up to this point? Are they ready?
I feel they're more than ready, and the Board of Supervisors, county attorney, and their outside counsel, they're ready.
Okay. So,
We need to be
the outside
transparent.
counsel is a fellow by the name of Templer, is that correct?
Yep.
Is he an independent practitioner, or does he have a firm?
Whitfield and Eddie is his firm. I'm not sure how many attorneys are there, but yeah.
I have never seen Mr. Templer at any meetings. I don't know if he goes to the closed sessions because we never have privy to that information, or even some feedback about that. So with respect to Mr. Authoritarian Nelson's point, is that he is the only person that can represent the taxpayers, of which I am one. And I did get my bill. So what I'm saying again this morning is support Mark Nelson as a representative for mediation. Thank you.
And I'd like to add on to something that Chad Sheehan said. So, Dan, you're not seeking reelection. Understandably, you've served for 12 years. I think we would be foolish to think that the city council, with the massive turnover that they're going to have, you got 9, 10 candidates in the race, that most likely they are going to appoint someone else to fill out the remainder of that term. And I know one of the poor decisions that the board made when Rocky resigned his seat at the Board of Supervisors was that they kept him on. And because he was no longer accountable in that capacity, there was a total disconnect between him and the Board of Supervisors, and we had nothing that was going on. And I think if you're anyone with the city council that has watched what happened there, I think that most likely they're going to put somebody who is in office, who has been recently elected, to serve in your capacity. So you may be off after the first of the year. Ron Wick's term is up end of December. He'll be off. I'm going to be the only one left. And I'm going to have to answer for anything that happens, or if it ends up going to litigation, it's going to be me. And I get the phone calls. If you go on the county website to the LEC Authority, is your phone number there, Ron? No. Is your number there, Dan? Nope. Mine is. And I appreciate his point because as farmers, we say all shit rolls downhill. And it's always downhill at me.
Well, I'm sorry.
I hear this stuff all the time. I was at McDonald's before this lunch today. Came up again. Somebody didn't even know. Stopped me. So I don't appreciate that I'm marginalized when I'm the only one out in the public and getting these phone calls and getting this feedback. And then the public shows up here and says the same thing that I'm hearing. And it's, oh, we know better. We know better. No wonder people hate politicians. They're told what to think all the time. I listen. I don't tell people what to think.
I listen too, and Mark, I don't know what the future holds. That's your speculation, and you have every right to make it. I don't know what's held there. What I will say, if my time frame is right, the mediation is what, November 20,
It's tentatively set for the end of November.
for the end of November, and we'll be having public hearings in December, I would hope, with
Yes.
some decisions that are
Yes.
made from the mediation. So we'll have those hearings in December. I'm serving out my term strong. I'm serving out my term the right way, and I will still be involved in this community. I care about this community. I too am a taxpayer, and I sit here and pay taxes. And I've really watched it for months and months and months, and have given my input. And so I don't think we should be tearing each other down at all about where we're gonna be, what we're gonna be doing, and whether we give it. I mean, I care a lot. I care. I've got the energy and I've got the drive to do it. But this is still November, this is September, and I'm hoping we could pull this off in November and get some decisions made in December. And if we don't, it might spill over to January. But I'm not ready to say I'm done December 31. I'm definitely not to say for everybody to know January 1 going forward that I don't care about this community. I don't care about what happens, and if I get a call, I'm not going to answer it. I'm going to answer calls every day that I get them from taxpayers that are concerned about our community, and they want the city of Sioux City to grow. They want the county to grow. They want to see development. I'm going to be answering those calls. I'm not going to sit there January 1 and say, There, the phone's ringing again, too bad, I don't have to worry about it anymore. I worry about it, and I worry about this every night. It doesn't go away. And I want some credit for that, but I'm not gonna ask for credit. I'm gonna give myself credit because I have worked very, very hard. And I take everything I do seriously.
Chairman Wick. First of all, Dan, this is not about you. This is about something much bigger than you. But I do have a question for the chairman. Do you have an idea at this point in time who are going to be at the mediation hearings? Do you have a list of folks?
Do I have a personal list of it?
Yes.
No, I do not.
How come you don't? If we're
Because-
getting that close?
Because I'm working with our attorney on this process, and our attorney's the authority.
Okay, and you two have talked about it?
I'm not going to reveal attorney-client privilege information.
I get it, yeah. Is Shane going to be there? That's what I want to know.
We are determining as we're doing today, we're determining our mediation representative from the authority, and there will be further conversations about who will be at the mediation. I'm not going to get into work product and attorney-client communications about strategy and about mediation. Many times, there are other people there. We might have an expert there to advise or an owner rep there. But at this time, I'm not going to get into protected communications regarding strategy. And we don't have a finalized list, including because this has come up. So we want to see I want to see what the decision is today.
Well, Dan says there's a sense of urgency, so maybe you should start working on that. Let me ask you this. You're representing the authority. Templer represents the taxpayers, or the Board of Supervisors. It's unclear to me. And Joshua represents the taxpayers. So perhaps are you saying I should address that question to them? As who they think should be on that team?
Let's have you get through your comments, and then we can answer the questions we want.
Okay, that's it. I'm finished.
Okay, well, John will be there, and Joshua and James may be there as well for the county, and they will make decisions about who they want representing the county and who will be there. And I will be making those decisions in consultation with my client and in consultation with John Templer and James and Joshua.
Well, just so Mark Nelson's there and Shane's not there. That's what I'm concerned about.
My point, Dan, was that if this doesn't get resolved in mediation, there's a chance that you and Ron won't be here next year when we're preparing for litigation, serving in this capacity. And so, again, I become the constant and I become the spear catcher. And I'm looking out for the people who put me here.
And I can't dispute that, Mark. You do a fine job. I'm sorry this is even happening to the three commissioners. I don't think it's right, but I've been in hotter places than this, so. But Mark, it's not about you. I have got a great deal of respect for you, always have had. So, it's nothing negative about Mark Nelson. And I do hope, if you're not the designated representative, LEC representative, I do hope you would still participate on the phone. That's more than a spectator.
So what happens if Dan Bittinger's sick and can't come that day?
I don't know if he's, if Matthew Long or one of the other supervisors would be in a position.
So you're willing to go down to option C for the county taxpayers so that we can keep option A for the authority?
No.
Doesn't
Mark,
that seem a
no.
bit backwards considering we've funded this thing for $70 million?
No, Mark. No, Mark. What happens if the LEC's attorney's sick? What happens if the mediator is sick? What happens? I like to think we have the flexibility to then readdress that. If I have to go here, we'll be here to the end of the day, because if we have to talk about all the different options that could happen at the end of November, if you want to go that far, and no, that's what I'm saying, there's no plan C, there's no plan B. It's doing, I mean, I have to do I have to do what I think is right, Mark, just like you're doing what you think is right.
What portion of the 6.7 million is the authority's damages? It's about 2 million, 2.5 million? So you got 4.5 on the county. So I just want to be clear for everybody listening that these two gentlemen believe the best way to attack this is to send the second and third best options from the county to try to collect 4.5 million so that they can send their best option to collect 2.5 million. That is what is being discussed right now.
That's absolutely false.
That is absolutely what's being discussed, because I have the most knowledge of anyone on the Board of Supervisors. The most, that's undisputed. So I would be the first option,
I'll tell you what's a
and
worse
for the
option.
largest pot of money.
I'll tell you what's a worse option than that. And it came up 2 weeks ago. We put the county in one room and we put the LEC in another room. That's a terrible idea. That's worse than.
That is a
what you-
terrible idea, and that could be avoided.
Yeah, but that's a terrible idea. Yeah, but that was also discussed. All of these options were discussed, but I totally disagree with what you're saying, with what you paint. I just don't agree, Mark. That's just absolutely
It's
not
true.
I think we
The
are.
county's damages are 4.5 million, Dan,
I think.
roughly. And I have the most knowledge of any supervisor on the board. So it's either me or Dan who has the second least.
Do you have more knowledge than the attorneys?
I don't understand what the attorneys have to do with representing the people of Woodbury County.
I probably rely on legal counsel a lot more than some others do, and I'm going to listen to legal counsel. And sometimes they say lawyers can be the worst client you have, but I don't think that's the case here.
And we could have 10 attorneys and we'd have 10
I listen
opinions.
to Yeah, this is really deteriorating. I just need to stop.
All right, I just want everyone to be aware that there's 4.5 million on the line for Woodbury County, 2.5 million of the authority, which is also the county's. And from the sounds of it, there's not enough votes to appoint me. So at this point, we have two members that are unelected across all of the county taxpayers that are willing to send the second and third options to collect the most money. With that, I would move approval.
Is there a second? Not hearing that, we move on to item number 6.
Do we need to have a motion to approve? Do we need that, Jody? Do we actually need a motion?
Moving on to, agenda item 6, if there's a
moving on.
motion, it needs to be made.
Yes.
Selection of the authorities, okay.
Okay, so item number 6 on the agenda today is selection of the authority's representative at mediation.
I nominate Mark Nelson.
Hearing no second, is there another nomination?
I'll move Ron Wick.
I'll second that.
I didn't hear that, sorry.
I'll move Ron Wick, be the authority's representative at mediation.
I'll second that. All in favor, aye? Aye.
Aye.
No?
Aye.
Okay, passes 2-0. Move on to item number 7, discussion and action on Star Control's T&M to assist commissioning agent. And if it would be okay, I'd like to call on Shane Albrecht to give us an overview of that, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There was a proposal that started for a time and material to come out and assist. Cornerstone came to do commissioning on the chiller. That's already been signed, so we're just bringing that here before the board to do. Basically, what they had to do was take the chiller through its paces, while our commissioning agent was looking at all the different things and how the different valves operated.
Any
And the-
questions? Hearing none, I make a motion, we approve that.
What's the cost?
They did it on a time and material basis,
Oh, okay.
Mark, and they
Sure.
did it at $200 an hour, so.
Do they have a rough estimate?
He was here for roughly 6 hours the first day and 4 hours the second day. Their price was not to exceed 16 hours of time.
Thank you. I'll second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Passed. Item number 8, information and update on LEC project, and again, I would call on Shane Albrecht if that's okay, please.
Yeah, so we've had a number of things going on since our last meeting, so to get you up to speed, our commissioning agent, of course, has been here. He wrote up probably 10 or 11 items on a report on the chiller. We had Corey Metzger from Resource Consultant Engineers. He spent yesterday with us and half of this morning with us, working through those issues. There'll be a follow-up and more stuff to follow from that. We had a meeting with Hausman about the seating and the landscaping. That meeting turned out to be a very good meeting. We walked through the outside, looked at the areas where the topsoil was missing. Steve Teal assured us he was going to put together a report with their solutions on how to get this fixed. And we're waiting to see that report, and I will share that with everybody when we get it. He then asked about other issues that we had and other warranty items. So we walked around and looked at the heaving parking lot, and he was curious about that. We walked around, talked about the Centria windows. We didn't really go into, other than he apologized for a solution that wasn't acceptable to a building owner for long-term. So there'll be more discussions on that. Our next meeting with him and Mark Lorene and Ron and Kenny was about the jury rooms. So they had proposed a couple solutions on the jury room that was not acceptable to what we'd seen. So they wanted to walk through that with the president of SANS. We walked through all of that stuff, came to an agreement on what would be an acceptable solution. He's supposed to write that all up. He also asked Kenny to email the courts to see if we could find 4 consecutive days that they could work on this, doing it at nights and weekends. So the proposal was Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Try to get this up with causing the least amount of effect to the courts. So Kenny sent them 3 dates yesterday, and we're waiting to see the plan and the dates that are picked. We've had Star Controls has implemented the Eptron airflow monitoring stations for air handlers 1 and 2. Corey was working through some of that with them yesterday as well, as we're trying to get that all dialed in. We went into the kitchen to look at some steam issues that are happening there. And we're waiting for a new EF9 fan that arrived today. And hopefully we can get that scheduled in the next couple of days to get that installed, to get that problem resolved. I think, Ron, is there anything else that you want to add?
I can't think of anything. I think you've gone, I'm glad you included the kitchen item because that's been a long, ongoing issue.
Kenny, anything else that you want to add on warranties or anything from the walkthrough?
Kenny Schmidt, Building Services. Just real quick list of items that I had, or items that I think still need to be addressed. That's the parking lot striping. Hausman attempted to schedule that about a week ago, and I didn't hear back from them. They're currently working on the fence pads for the generator. They worked on that today, and it looks like they'll possibly finish that up maybe tomorrow. Of the other items I have left, they are all CW Suter items, and it's becoming frustrating because they're not huge items, but they've been long-term ongoing items. And so I am trying to light a fire under them to come and do their work and get it done. There's a couple other items that stick out that aren't big. They're just a couple of security lightings in a couple different cells. Pauley Jail has sent Building Services the repair parts for those, but we have not had discussion with Thompson or anyone about installing those yet. So those are the other additional items I had. Thanks, Shane.
Thank
And
you.
the only other thing I forgot to mention, Mr. Chairman, was PR 54, the test and balancing work. It got probably 98% complete the last time I was here. There was a couple areas in the jail that have taken some adjustment time, and we're still waiting on an update when those last few areas have been resolved.
Thank you. Any questions for Shane?
None.
Thank you, Shane. Item number 9, public concerns that do not relate to a scheduled item on the agenda.
I asked this question because I really don't know the answer, and Jody, maybe you can. So if their terms are up in December 31st, what process does each how are they appointed? So if Dan's no longer a city council person, can the city council still choose to have a non-city council person sit on the LEC Authority?
My recollection of the bylaws and the other formation documents is, yes is the answer to your question. So the city chooses one representative, the county chooses one representative, and then they both choose the third representative.
Okay, and so then for the county, so just so I make sure I understand, because I know people are gonna ask me and I wanna make sure I
Sure,
know.
yeah.
So the city gets to choose a representative for the city on the LEC Authority. That person doesn't have to be a city council member.
That's my recollection.
The
correct.
county,
They just have to live in the city
they have
limits.
to live in the city. The county gets to choose a representative for the county on the LEC Authority. It doesn't have to be a board of supervisor. They just have to live
Out of the
outside the city.
Correct.
And then the chairman is voted by the two bodies on a 4/5 vote. And then each one of these two would be a 4/5 vote of their own respective bodies? Or
Correct.
is it just a majority?
4/5.
4/5. Okay.
Correct.
That answers my question.
All right.
I'd like to reiterate, Burrows again, I'd like to reiterate something that I suggested last meeting and say it again today, that I think the authority should terminate their agreement with the Baker Group effective immediately. I see no further reason to keep them on the payroll. And I'd like to have one of you make a motion to that effect. Last week, I said effective September 1st. This week, I'd like to say effective September 15th. Thank you. Oh, one other thing I'd like to say. There was reference to Chairman, at that time, Chairman Ung, serving in, what did you say? In case Dan Bidner can't be there? Is that what you said?
No, I said the county could have two supervisors there, so Matthew Ung could go with Dan Bittinger or Kent or David.
Okay. That's what I'd like to comment on, because if my memory serves me correctly, and I could be wrong, we have a scribe in the audience, but there should be a record of this. 2 weeks before this is how non-vigilant Chairman Wick was. 2 weeks before the jail was supposed to be open, Matthew Ung asked the question, is the jail going to be ready to open on September 14th? And that's when all the feces hit the fan. And I'm pretty positive about that, but I would like to be proven wrong if that's incorrect. Thank you.
Any other public concerns? Seeing none, we'll move to item number 10 on the agenda, Authority Board Member Concerns.
Mr. Burrows, I remember that. You are correct. And actually, we tried to call the authority to a meeting, and they declined to answer that question. So yes, it was 1 week or 2 weeks prior to the delay. Actually, I believe it was 2, because I believe the week before was when I was appointed to take over Rocky DeWitt's seat, because there was no communication from this body to there, which was a recommendation of the legal counsel. And so sometimes, there was mentioned several times that we have to take the advice of our legal counsel. And as I said, you can have 10 attorneys in a room, you'll have 10 different opinions. And I disagreed with that one there, and I disagree today. Thank you.
Nothing further.
Very good, thank you. Item number 11 on the agenda today is joint closed session with the Woodbury County Board of Supervisors and Frederickson and Byron Law Firm under Iowa Code Section 21.51C. I make a motion that we go into closed session.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Wick,
Aye.
Moore,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.